Katie Riley, and I'm so pleased to welcome you to Teaching Forgiveness on how the pandemic affected education and how teachers adapted to meet students' needs both inside and outside of the classroom. The focus of those who teach forgiveness is similar. Today, we'll speak with a few educators from around the world who have found ways to make forgiveness a part of their teaching practice and have seen it affect their students for the better. We'll also hear from the co-founder and CEO of Ubongo, a leading producer of educational content that reaches children across 40 countries in Africa. But before we dive into those discussions, a few housekeeping notes. First, during today's event, we'll be using a live audience engagement tool through Mentimeter to ask questions about your own thoughts on forgiveness and whether you have or would like to incorporate it into your own teaching practice. Our first question, which you can answer by following the forgivenessforum.com link in the chat and opening it in a new browser window, asks, would you consider integrating forgiveness lessons into your practice? Secondly, we'd like to hear from you. We'll be taking questions from the audience during our panel discussions, so please feel free to ask your questions in the chat and share your thoughts on social media using #ForgivenessForum. This is the third in the Templeton World Charity Foundation series of Forgiveness Forum events. And after today's conversation, you can visit forgivenessforum.com, where you can find links to resources and additional forum videos. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Andrew Sarrazin, President of the Templeton World Charity Foundation and the host of today's event.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome to this session on teaching forgiveness, learning to thrive. We're so glad that you and the rest of the panelists have joined us, and we're super thrilled to partner with World Education Week as a sponsor of the World's Best School Prize for Overcoming Adversity, because we know that now more than ever, it is not easy to be a teacher. I think a unique feature of the past year and a half it is that it has nudged us, so many of us, into a period of introspection and reassessment. We've become painfully aware of our own imperfections, the ways in which we might have been hurt, and in turn may have hurt others. And in this time of disruption, we've asked some fundamental questions. What makes life worth living? What is education for? What should I live for and why? How can I overcome adversity in my own life and help others to do the same? In short, we've asked, how can we flourish, not just survive? And so that at the Templeton World Charity Foundation, where I'm president, we think these are essential questions about life with implications for life. And although not every We think these are essential questions about life of human flourishing are woefully neglected. And so the mission of the Templeton World Charity Foundation is to bridge this gap between research, practice, and policy to seek and support the world's best minds and institutions in the pursuit of human flourishing. And we've dedicated $60 million to this effort over the next 5 years. The Templeton World Charity Foundation is a global philanthropy based proudly in the island nation of the Bahamas, but we have over 200 projects in more than 50 countries. We fund cutting-edge research on machine learning and moral decision-making, the development of altruism in young children, the neural signatures of consciousness, how to make science more effective and efficient, and so much more. You can go to templetonworldcharity.org to find out and learn more. But importantly, discoveries and research are not enough. We're interested in building an evidence base that connects what we call the habits of mind and heart to actions that can accelerate progress on indicators of social change and prosperity. Some examples could include studies that link gratitude to climate action, or humility to vaccine hesitancy, or hope to health outcomes. But one of the most important habits of the mind and heart is that of forgiveness. Psychologists define forgiveness as a reduction in vengeful thoughts and feelings that is accompanied by an increase in positive thoughts and feelings towards an offending person. I think of this as a kind of psychological alchemy that turns emotional garbage into gold. And I believe that this is a universal skill for living and flourishing as a human today. For over 20 years, the Templeton Philanthropies has supported research on forgiveness, and much of this work has been coordinated and funded by our sister organization, the John Templeton Foundation. And we owe a great debt to pioneers of this research like Everett Worthington and Robert Enright and the International Forgiveness Institute. More than 50 studies conducted around the world have found that forgiveness interventions improve mental health outcomes such as depression, anger, hostility, and stress. And so the science is clear. Forgiveness works. But the key question is, how do we learn to forgive? How do we connect research to practice and lived experience? And that brings us to today, which is our third forgiveness forum. In previous iterations, we've explored the role of forgiveness in the lives of world leaders and their nations. We've dispelled common misconceptions about forgiveness with leading mental health advocates and influencers. And now today, we're joined by some of the best teachers in the world as part of World Education Week, who have integrated forgiveness into their classrooms. And so with them, I look forward to diving into a number of questions, including, can forgiveness enhance academic achievement? How can forgiveness support teacher well-being? Does forgiveness build resilience and help students overcome adversity? And what are the most critical lessons that students need to learn today to become the future leaders of tomorrow? So, as Katie mentioned, throughout this 1-hour conversation, please share your thoughts and questions in the chat, connect with other teachers, and we look forward to your thoughts. So back to you, Katie, and on to the panel.
Thank you so much, Andrew. We'll hear from you again at the end of today's event, but for now, I'm pleased to introduce some of the members doing that forgiveness work that you just described. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Peli Galidi of Greece, Dr. Kofi Marfo of Ghana, and Annette Shannon of Northern Ireland. To give you all a brief introduction to our educators, Dr. Galidi is a researcher, educator, and author from Athens. She is a former high school teacher and a school counselor with a master's degree in school psychology and a PhD in educational psychology. She is the Greek Forgiveness Education Program Director for the International Forgiveness Institute and has trained more than 600 teachers on implementing a forgiveness curriculum in their classrooms. Dr. Marfo is co-chair of Templeton's Forgiveness Scientific Advisory Council and an expert in early childhood development who has taught educational and developmental psychology at 6 universities in Canada, the United States, Africa, and Asia during his 42-year career. And Annette Shannon is a teacher at Holy Cross Primary School in Belfast, one of the first schools in the country to adopt the forgiveness curriculum of Dr. Robert Enright, who pioneered the scientific study of forgiveness. Annette has used the program to help repair strained student-family relationships and to ease religious tensions in the school's mixed faith community. Thank you all so much for being here today. Peli, I'd like to start with you. Given your background both in the classroom and as a leader of professional development for other teachers, I wonder if you could explain how forgiveness factors into education. Why do you think forgiveness is something educators should be thinking about?
So thank you, Katie. Thank you for inviting me to talk about forgiveness, about this great topic. And I believe so much, I strongly believe that forgiveness education can change the lives of our students, can change the world actually. So it's not just me, it's science. As Andrew said before, science says clear, forgiveness works. And it really works. We have so many publications that demonstrate the benefits of forgiveness education on the student's life and the classroom climate, in the families also. So throughout my 8 years of teaching forgiveness and training the teachers actually to teach forgiveness, I have seen miracles happening in the rooms, in the classrooms, between the students, in their personal life, also within their families. So what happens is that forgiveness reduces anger. And as we know, behind any delinquent behavior, there is an unresolved anger. So anger can very easily become resentment, and this can become contagious. So we can pass our hate and our resentment to others, the same way we can pass love and compassion to the others. So when resentment remains inside us, then it affects not only us or the family or the school environment, but it affects also the whole community. So we can work alongside with justice. It's not separate. They can work together, justice and forgiveness, and we can bring peace in the heart of the victims, in their families, and in the community. So forgiveness reduces anger and increases collaboration, as all the research proves to us and demonstrates. It increases self-control. It helps develop empathy, develop interpersonal skills, but most of all, it alleviates bullying problems in the schools and is preventive for violence. So it's not only preventive, but we have seen also that it can heal the students from past emotional wounds. So this is a major reason, I think, for educators to choose forgiveness in their curriculum.
And Annette, I'm curious, for you as a primary school teacher, why has forgiveness become important to you? How did you begin the process of incorporating forgiveness into your curriculum and introducing this concept to your students?
Hello, Katie. Well, I would have to say that in our school, one of the key elements to our teaching is developing and responding to relationships within your classroom. So in our school, we have children from 4 to 11 years of age. And we learned through experience that unless we explicitly taught children values, respect, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, that they would be disadvantaged as adults.
Dr. Marfo, I'm curious, looking at this from the perspective of early childhood development, why is it important to introduce the concept of forgiveness during those early childhood years?
First of all, let me begin by emphasizing that the first several years of development are a very crucial period for building the foundations of optimal health, development, and learning, and therefore also for building the foundations for personal flourishing and the societal human capital development necessary for broad social and economic well-being. Bringing attention to the early years, from my perspective, is an important period for seeding and nurturing character development. It's my way of encouraging nation states to rethink the dominant view of education as a process that, one, begins when children enter school, and two, predominantly entails the acquisition of academic, linguistic, and cognitive competencies. I think too much of our societal thinking about the concept of school readiness, for example, tends to be about children being ready to enter school. And that often translates into expecting children to arrive in school already equipped with the behaviors and competencies supportive of academic learning. Within that mindset, children considered unable to acquire literacy and numeracy skills swiftly become pathologized. They are said to have deficits that get in the way of attaining their potential. Now, I have intentionally decided to address these issues because I think they are very foundational to the very noble efforts to build the values arena within our educational system, and forgiveness being our topic for today. There are two forms of readiness in our educational settings. Both of them require deliberate investments in the early years of development. The first is readiness for children on the part of nations and communities. If we're going to have children who are flourishing and are doing well in societies that are flourishing, society has to be ready for children to begin with. Societies that are ready for children build comprehensive systems of nurturing care to provide for the health, nutrition, development, protection, and early learning needs of all children, including matters of the heart, which we express by way of values. The second form of neglected readiness is readiness on the part of schools for the children they seek to educate. An education system with schools that are for children prepare educators and school professionals to understand the interconnectedness of family, community, and school context as education environments to be supported and coordinate the benefit of developing and learning of the learning child. So at some point, I think Annette and I will probably come back and address this issue of the role of schools and the family and community. I personally like to see a way to bring these entities together and charge all entities as having responsibility for raising children, not only in academic cognition, but also in matters of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in